Alive and alert on the north side of the dirt. It is your man D Real coming at you with another Be Real with D Real, where edutainment is what I do. Yeah. Movie review. Dungeons and Dragons. Honor Among Thieves. If you dig Dungeons and Dragons, like I dig Dungeons and Dragons, then you want to be here for this let's talk about recap. I wouldn't necessarily call it a review because I'm not a film reviewer, but I do go to movies and I do have opinions. So before we get off into that, I need y'all to do what you always do for me. Comment, like, subscribe, and share the Be Real with D Real page so that when new material comes out, you get it. If you're digging what a brother shoveling, put some dirt in my bucket. Comment, like, subscribe, and share. We pushing 400, ready to go 5, ready to go thousands. You know what I'm saying? Truth is contagious. And if y'all digging it, I'll keep spitting it. All right. Without further ado, let's get into Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Among Thieves. Dungeons and Dragons. Okay. Want to talk about it? Let's talk about it. Before we get off into the flick, though, I want y'all to understand Dungeons and Dragons isn't just a fad. Dungeons and Dragons isn't just a game or movie and or movies based on a game. It's a movement. Dungeons and Dragons, as far as I can remember, as an entity, as a game, has been around since the mid to late 1970s. Was created by a company called TSR. It was a turn-based board game in which you create a character and your character goes on different adventures in different lands and faces different situations and monsters in order to get gold and or fame and or to create or finish a mission. I got into Dungeons and Dragons in its inception when people who played Dungeons and Dragons were pariahs. Dungeons and Dragons has been 3 movies. Two that came out in 2005 and 2012. Those were TV movies. And then there was a live action movie featuring Jeremy Irons in 2000. And this one is a reboot. Honor Among Thieves is a reboot. You get to hear the names and places and creatures that inhabit the world of Dungeons and Dragons, and it's almost like a Marvel movie, um, but not quite. Christopher Pine there, center, is the main character in the movie. He is a character known as Edgin, I want to say, is what they Edgin. We'll just call him Ed. He's basically a character who belonged to the Order of Harpers, which is supposed to be like a loyal type, honorable, chaotic good organization. Dropping that Dungeons and Dragons knowledge, letting y'all know. And when his wife died, I'm not going to get all into the details of that. He decided he would become this thief guy. And to his right there is his right hand girl slash girl Friday, whatever you want to call it, Holga, played by the sarcastic and deadpan Michelle Rodriguez. She is stronger than the average bear because she's tossing grown ass men around like they were children. And she is kind of the sarcastic heart of the group. The young lady to the left, she plays a character by the name of Doric. And Doric is a druid who is a shapeshifter. And her shapeshifting abilities come in mad handy in terms of fighting, in terms of spying and surveillance, that kind of thing, because she can literally shapeshift into anything. And Her powers come in very handy in situations. And then there is also Justice Smith, who plays a character by the name of Simon, who is a wizard who who is very reminiscent of Orko from Masters of the Universe. He means well when he casts a spell, but sometimes they don't go where they need to go. Hugh Grant is also in this movie, and he plays a character named Forge, who's originally down with this crew, but he betrays them. And Michelle Rodriguez and Chris Pine's characters, Ed and Holga, end up getting imprisoned. And when the movie starts, that's where we see them at. They are in a prison, which, if I'm not mistaken, has also been displayed in the Dungeons and Dragons lore. Also, you hear names like Neverwinter. The people who did this movie, Jonathan Francis Daly and Jonathan Goldstein, did their research. If you are a fan of Dungeons and Dragons, a lot of references, a lot of characters, a lot of places, you're gonna go, ooh, I played an adventure there. The only thing was missing for me, was a beholder. How are you gonna have Dungeons and Dragons and not have a beholder in the game? But they had a displacer beast, so that was kind of, I'm cool with it. For I don't want to get off into it too much because I don't want to tell too much of the movie. But bottom line, there are paladins, which is who Roger Jean Page plays. He plays a paladin by the name of Zinc, and he's kind of the moral compass slash battle skill of the crew. He's a paladin. Paladin was my second favorite character. When I played Dungeons and Dragons, I had a high level paladin, and he had some very powerful magical items. See, I'm nerding out. Let me stop and stay and stay focused on what's going on. Anyway, a lot of this is the hero's journey. Chris Pine is trying to get back to his daughter to rescue her, to get her out of the clutches of Hugh Grant's character, who goes by the name of Forge and is now the lord of a city. And by his side, he has Sophina, a red wizard. As we know, who are chaotically evil. And she plays Daisy Head is the name of the actress who plays Sophina. And Sophina is just a dark, sinister looking character. But a lot of the high points in this movie, the monsters, the dragon from the Underdark. We get to see that. We get to see Raycor. And like I said, we get to see Displacer Beast. We get to see a lot of actual creatures from the Dungeons and Dragons mythos. So if you are a fan of Dungeons and Dragons, you are going to be over the moon with this movie. If you're not a fan of Dungeons and Dragons, it does follow the typical hero's journey slash vengeance motif. Chris Pine's character has a crisis of conscience, and he reassesses the way he is forced to reassess the way he moves in the world. Funny side note, Olga, Michelle Rodriguez's character, is very, very, very fond of little hobbit men, which is strange because she's like a big, you can see in that picture, she's like a big buff barbarian chick, and she's just enamored with little fellas. Bradley Cooper makes a cameo as her ex-husband halfling, hobbit, whatever you want to call it. They are halflings because they don't want to get in. I guess TSR never wanted to get in trouble with J.R.R. Tolkien's estate, and so they simply called them halflings and took the hair off their feet. But for all intents and purposes, Holga digs hobbits. Also, too, Doric, the character to the left, she was at one point dating Justice Smith's character of Simon, but because he didn't have any confidence, she was like, I'm gonna kick Brad to the curb. I don't want to get with him. Whereas he everybody goes through a journey of the hero's journey, evolution, whether that be physical, whether that be skill wise, whether that be moral or emotional. They all got a change of heart. And they went from being chaotic neutral to, I guess we could say, lawful good, more or less. You know, like they had turned a new leaf and they wanted to do better. Special effects in the movie, great. The battles, sort of like when they're fighting, and the people, the wizards and the magic users who are using magic, very cool looking. There is a point where Simon and Sophina have sort of like a wizard battle, and that's worth the price of admission alone. I like to see that kind of, fanciful sorceress battle, and that kind of combat. It's to me, of all the Dungeons and Dragons movies that have been made, and I have seen all of them, uh this one is the best, in my opinion. It doesn't do too much. It makes reference to things like hither thither stabs. It makes reference to things like owl bears. I mean, there's a lot, like I said, a lot of prominent Dungeons and Dragons stuff, straight out of Monster Manual type stuff. It's an amazing little ride, and I think if you are a fan of Dungeons and Dragons, you will really, really, really enjoy it. And like I said, if you're not a fan of Dungeons and Dragons, it's still a good movie overall. Oh, before I forget, oh, oh, before I forget, here comes the best Easter egg of all time. Yep, these guys right here make an appearance in the Dungeons and Dragons movie. Hank and Gang, yes, from the old 1983 Dungeons and Dragons cartoon series, are in Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves. However, don't get excited because they're in a maze and they don't have their special weapons. So you get the costumes. The costumes are super accurate. Diana, Bobby, Hank, all of them are the colors are accurate, the look is accurate. We don't have Uni, but we do have the 6 original Dungeons and Dragons characters from the old Dungeons and Dragons cartoon. And only people who rocked with that original series and knew what was up with it realized and recognized and went, oh, because I was the only person in the theater when I seen them. I was like, oh, that's Dungeons and Dragons cartoon, people. Because there's a point where they're in a maze and there's a bunch of different groups of adventurers in mazes. I don't want to give too much of it away, but they're all like kind of in an arena type situation. And Hank's group of Dungeons and Dragons adventurers is in there. Ed and Holga's group of Dungeons and Dragons adventurers. So that again was hats off to the makers of this movie for being very, very respectful of all things Dungeons and Dragons. D-Real rating? What kind of face am I giving this? Yep. For the nostalgia alone that it created, smiley face for me. I was happy throughout this movie. There were some places where it kind of low because it was plot connection and you're trying to, put everything together. But overall, put a number to it, I say a solid 7.5. Side note, opening weekend at this point, Dungeons and Dragons was a $150 million movie and it's only made 15 million so far. So get out there and support Dungeons and Dragons. I recommend it. I think it was a good movie. I enjoyed it thoroughly. It's a good outing, and it's an even better outing if you are a Dungeons and Dragons fan. And even and infinitely better if you are a Dungeons and Dragons fanatic. Port loading. That's it for now. But fret not. I will be coming at you with another one of them other ones. And until I do, y'all be good. Be good to each other. Hey, I'm doing a live Sunday. Tomorrow at let's call it noon. Noon Pacific. Okay, we'll be doing one at noon Pacific. I'll put out the regular, banners and what's and hey, come check this out. But come check it out. We're gonna do what we needed to do. I had some tech difficulties Thursday, but we're gonna get our live in. We're gonna get our live in. Like I said, fret not. Coming at you with another one of them other ones. Be good. Be good to each other.